What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Now today I wanted to do another 2017 gaming related video. I know most people do these videos at the end of the year and not the start of the next one, but that's kind of where we are because I'm lazy and really have trouble getting around to making these videos. But today we are going to be talking about the best years in gaming in general. Now, it's no secret that 2017 was one of the best years in my personal memory for new releases, with games like Zelda, Mario, Horizon Zero Dawn, Senua's Sacrifice. You've got so many other fucking incredible games, and some more games that are coming out in 2018. Like, we had Wolfenstein 2, we had Nier Automata, we had Persona 5, we had so many games that it's actually kind of terrifying. Even previously sort of average franchises overall, like Assassin's Creed, smashed it out of the park with Origins. So overall, 2017 was a pretty incredible year for old franchises and new franchises, not franchises, I'm not sure what that is. New franchises and sort of reboots like Wolfenstein, and that got me thinking as to how good this year actually was in relation to other years. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the other years that have produced ridiculous titles of ridiculous quality consistently over the space of the year. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. If you do enjoy, like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Now, the first year we're going to talk about today is the first month we're going to talk about today is the obvious one. It's the first month? I just realised what I said. The first year we're going to talk about today is the most obvious one. It's the one that most people tout as the best year for gaming, at least in the modern generations. That year is 2007, and these 12 glorious months for gamers brought games like Halo 3, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, The Orange Box, BioShock, Super Mario Galaxy, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, I believe, Skate, and many other games aside from that. And this plethora of top-class games was by no means a mistake. The Xbox 360 and the PS3 were out, unleashing more power on developers than had ever been had before, at least in the arms of consoles. And this brought on so many new waves. You had Halo 3 and Call of Duty 4, which spent the whole year duking it out for best online game. I do believe most people chose Call of Duty 4. I'm still privy to Halo 3, unfortunately. But you had so many other games. You had the first Mass Effect, the starting of one of the best trilogies ever. You had the Orange Box, which gave you Team Fortress 2, the first Portal, and I believe Half-Life 2, all in the same package, Portal being one of the best games ever made in my opinion. You have BioShock, which is quite literally one of the best games ever made and one of my favourite games ever. You had the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which is many people's favourite Elder Scrolls to this day. And in short, guys, 2007 was a ridiculous year for games, and one that brought so many new franchises to so many people's doorsteps, because the 360 and the PS3 were affordable. More important than anything else, they were affordable, and that was what swung it for most people. The game selection was incredible, the consoles were really good, and even the Wii managed to release some decent titles when it switched to motion controls. Overall, a solid 10 out of 10 for games in 2007.
There are two ways to start your day. Choose 4 layers.
Now we're going to go a little bit further back for our next one, and this time we are going to visit the year of 1996, just 3 years after I was born. Now, for that reason, I didn't get to experience most of the games launched in this genre until much later down the line. That doesn't stop the fact that 1996 was a classic year for games. Literally, the list is incredible. We had Super Mario 64 with its first, I believe, Mario's first escapade into the 3D realm, and still considered one of the best Mario games ever made. We had the first Resident Evil, which is claustrophobic atmosphere and clunky controls, making for possibly one of the most scary games ever made. Maybe for the wrong reasons, but it's still a classic today. It's been remastered and it's still as good in that form, so that shows that the first Resident Evil was an absolute masterpiece, in my opinion. We had the first Diablo, the starting of a cult series. Maybe not everyone's favourite games, but Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and even the much hated upon Diablo 3 were all very, very good games. The Loot Fest was incredible, the fights were awesome, the teamwork and the online play in the later titles was really good as well, and it's just generally a really friendly title in what is usually an unfriendly genre. We had Tekken 2, the precursor obviously to Tekken 3, the PlayStation 1 classic. Tekken 2 kind of started it all, brought major limelight onto the series, and then you ended up with Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament, and that's basically where Tekken stopped being good in my opinion. But Tekken 3, Tekken 2, Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag Tournament were all awesome, and it's mostly down to the success and the achievements of Tekken 2 as a fighting game. I don't know how many times I said Tekken there, but fuck me. All of these titles are partly down to the fact that the Nintendo 64 released in 1996. Most of these titles were playable on the Nintendo 64 to the best of my knowledge, but that's not even the whole reason. You also had other games. You had the cult classic Duke Nukem 3D, not a particularly good game, but hilariously gory for the time. The one-liners were ridiculous, and everything else just added up to make a truly, truly fun experience. And you also had the unforgettable Tomb Raider, the first escapade for a female hero in the modern limelight. It was the first game that did it, and it is still one of the most successful franchises to date, and it truly was a terrific game. You can go back and play it now and you can see how much it did for that area of games, how much it did for titles like Uncharted, even the games like Assassin's Creed. It doesn't feel particularly good, it hasn't aged particularly well, but you can really see why it was so important. It was a really terrific game, and all of this together really shows that 1996 is up there with one of the best gaming years ever, even if I personally didn't experience a lot of it until later on down the line. And of course, you can't forget the PlayStation mascot in Crash Bandicoot. Brought a whole series of entertaining games, but it had to start somewhere, and it started in 1996. We're going to cover one more year today before we come back around to 2017, and that is going to be 2004. Probably my soft spot here, just due to the amount of games that just throw nostalgia at me in fucking handfuls. Like, it's endless. You had Halo 2, the game that revolutionized online competitive shooting. It had tournaments, it had online play with friends, it was the first major use of Xbox Live, and that is what brought such a successful online portion to the PlayStation as well. And even though Halo 2 is an Xbox exclusive, what it did for shooting games overall was just incredible. It arguably refined the genre far more than its predecessor did, just by adding the addition of the competitive online scene. Truly one of my favourite games ever, and what it did for shooting games, online and offline, cannot be understated. Following on neatly from that, we had Half-Life 2, another shooter that revolutionised its genre, known for its perfect storytelling, challenging puzzling, really good shooting mechanics, and just good characters and voice acting overall. Half-Life 2 was the epitome of a good single-player shooter, really, with lots of other aspects thrown in, and it was really good. It also had a local multiplayer. Not sure if it had online, someone can tell me later, I'm sure, but very, very good game. And then we had the classic GTA San Andreas. Don't lie, you used the hot coffee cheat. We all did. It's perfectly acceptable to admit it. But San Andreas is probably still maybe my second favourite GTA game after GTA 5, because GTA 5's story was so kooky and unbelievable. It was just hilarious to play through. But San Andreas was awesome. It was a really, at least to start with, believable tale of a man on the rise from what he starts with. And just everything about the game was ridiculous. The further you went into it, you end up with ridiculous cars. You could do cheats to spawn jets and stuff in, and it was just unreal. And it was a great sandbox to playing. Even if you go back to it now, it hasn't aged well. At the time, it was hours and days and weeks of fun with friends and on your own. You also had the very good Far Cry and Unreal Tournament 2004 release. Maybe not as revolutionary as Half-Life 2 and Halo 2, but still very good shooters in their own right. Unreal Tournament had that just classic Quake and Doom feel of twitchy competitive shooting, and Far Cry brought a more open sandbox feel to shooting games, whereas most of the time the experiences were fairly linear, as was the case with Halo 2 and Half-Life 2. So Far Cry brought something new to the table yet again. And the last one I'm going to mention, even though there were plenty of other games like Metroid Prime 2, we had a Zelda game, we had Ninja Gaiden, we had a Metal Gear Solid game, we had Burnout 3 Takedown, which deserves a special mention because it was fucking amazing. I'm going to put a special mention to Doom 3, still one of my favourite horror games, or horror shooter games that I've ever played. It brought a new feel to what was potentially a dying game. And even though the new reboot in 2016 did very well, I still think Doom 3 is actually my favourite Doom to date. So 2004, thumbs up from me. Maybe not as good in real life terms as 2007, but just for nostalgia, it beats it out, just for me personally. And that brings us round quite nicely to 2017. Now you've jumped 10 years there, and that is because between the years of 2007 and 2017, there hasn't been a absolute smasher of a year. There have been plenty and plenty, hundreds of good games, but released over wide spans, and there have been so many average games that the good games get lost in the mud, and you ended up with lots of boring reboots of Call of Duty and Battlefield and FIFA and Madden dominating the sales, that it just became hard to tell the cream from the crop, as it were. 2017 brought an end to that, I hope, with stellar titles like Nier Automata, a great JRPG almost feeling action RPG with a great storyline, majestic combat, great graphics, and a really unique feel. You had great titles released in VR, such as Robo Recall, the Super Hot, which is actually arguably better in VR than it is as an indie game on console, and a few others as well. There's one I can't quite remember what it's called. It's like Rocket League meets Ender's Game. You fly around in space throwing discs into goals. Very popular on VR and free with the Oculus Rift. Very good game. There was also games like Horizon Zero Dawn, great PS4 exclusive, and a brand new mascot for Sony. There was the release of the Xbox One X, the most powerful console in history, and the PS4 Pro, the more affordable version of that console. And then you had the obvious contenders for Game of the Year, Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, thanks to the release of the stupendous Nintendo Switch. In my history of living, I cannot remember a console release being as fervorous as the demand for the Switch was. Sold out for 6 months afterwards, with a relatively small game selection, and then just releasing smasher after banger of games with Zelda, Mario Odyssey, the Skyrim remaster. You had ARMS, which was very good. You had Splatoon 2 or 3, or whichever one it was, that did very well. You've got a new Pokemon RPG coming out. You've got so many games that play so well on the Switch and are so well suited to it that Mario Odyssey especially and Zelda Breath of the Wild smashed it out of the park, gaining either first or second place in Game of the Year from everyone. Now, you've noticed I haven't mentioned any games from Xbox, and that's because largely they didn't contribute as much in that area, except for the notable release of Cuphead, a very, very, very good side-scrolling shoot-'em-up using old graphics that have been gorgeously hand-drawn by 2 or 3 people. One of the best games of the year, one of the hardest games of the year, and extremely satisfying. And then there's been no end of indie games that I could talk about, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to come around to Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, a game that came out of nowhere and surprised everyone. Following on from the very successful Old Blood, it smashed it out of the park, bringing in, as long as I can remember, a single-player first-person shooter to challenge for Game of the Year. I can't remember the last time that happened. Possibly Borderlands, if you count that as single player. Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus smashed it out of the park, and all these games together make 2017 such a memorable year for gaming that I don't think it will be beaten this year, the year after, or the year after that. Come to that, I think we're going to have to wait for a whole new generation before 2017 gets beaten on gaming terms. I have so many games that I missed, so many games that I bought and didn't play. Prey is a good one I never finished. Fantastic game, but never had the time to finish it because of all the other games. And it's just, you had Fortnite and PUBG, both 2 very good battle royale games, one of them free, one of them not, both regularly updating their content and dragging masses and masses of crowds to Twitch and YouTube. It's just been a stupendous year for gaming, and this video is my way of celebrating that, because I, as a gamer, love games. I love it when games are released. I love it when good games are released, and quite frankly, there have been too many this year to talk about, even though I have tried my absolute best, and I'm running out of breath. Jesus Christ, I need some exercise. Yeah, and that about rounds this video up. 2017 was an incredible year for games. It was so good that I didn't have time to make videos because I was too busy playing games. And that, to me, is a sign of a good year. Here's to more great games in 2018. Here's to more Xbox exclusives. Pretty please. And here's to more fantastic, fantastic games from every platform going. My name's been Zach. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.